AromaticChat, the podcast that introduces you to registered, clinical, and certified aromatherapists around the world. Every other week, my bestest friend, partner in crime, and business partner sits down with a different aromatherapist to learn about their aromatic journey and how they use aromatherapy in their lives and businesses. Aromatic Chat is produced by Lemon Balm Coaching. Your host is Melissa, Master Transformational Coach and registered aromatherapist.
Hey friends, welcome to podcast episode number 88, Aromatic Chat with Chloe Ellert. Chloe is a first-generation sex therapist and a second-generation clinical aromatherapist. She specializes in women's sexual trauma, having been a victim herself. Her work is centered around the knowledge and tools she gained along her own healing journey, including aromatherapy. Sexual trauma symptoms can be invisible, and this is what makes the work so important for women. They can suffer symptoms for years thinking it is something else, with no real solution or answers. Chloe suffered for 10 years with symptoms of mental health and intimate physical issues before discovering her trauma. I have a feeling this is going to be an episode you'll want to share, and you're going to be so glad you tuned in today. So, let's get started. Chloe, I am so thankful that you are here on Aromatic Chat because I feel like you have a very unique niche in the aromatherapy community that people inside and outside of our community need to hear about.
Yes. So I haven't heard of many people who are actually an aromatherapist, but also look at sex therapy and sexual trauma in women. And I was like, but it's such an obvious correlation. It's such an obvious avenue when you look at what essential oils can do on a mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical level, But I kind of got into it by accident. Well, not entirely by accident. My mother is an aromatherapist too, and she pushed me into it, and then it just snowballed.
Excellent. So that's actually the first question is like, just tell us your story. I mean, that's a little, like a little preview of it, but like, how did you get here where you're marrying aromatherapy and sex therapy and like, tell us your story.
Okay. So, we're going to go way back to when I was a child because we have to go there. My mother is an incredible person. When we lived in Hong Kong, I grew up in Hong Kong. When we lived there, she got into aromatherapy by accident, and I was kind of nursed and bathed in aromatherapy since I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and I didn't realize how much it was influencing me, and I was catching on to traditional Chinese medicine concepts and understanding, and even how do you say it? Like even like Shaolin understandings and Buddhism and everything kind of all meshed together, and to me it was common sense, but to many people it was not common sense. And as I got older and I had to think about what I wanted to do, I was way off aromatherapy, but then the pandemic hit and I was faced with what do I want to do? I had a bachelor's in something that I was not passionate about, and I wanted to do a master's online. And my mother, she was nudging me towards sexology because I found this master's at a university in Spain, and they were doing it online. And so I was like, oh, I don't know why this is speaking to me, but it's speaking to me. So I went for it. And then, ironically, it was during my master's that I understood that I had myself sexual trauma from years and years and years ago. And it kind of explained my horrible anxiety, depression, and my complete fear of intimacy occasionally that would come up. And it was the most traumatic and horrible feeling to not have control over your body, over your physical body, even though your mental was probably saying, oh, but this logically you should not be afraid. Logically you should not be reacting this way, but your body just takes over in a fight or flight moment. And I had that for years and years and years. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to be committed. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know. I don't have an answer. This is probably PTSD, but I don't know why I have this PTSD. I don't know where it's coming from. And it was through my mother and this master's that kind of put it all together. And then little by little, I was kind of creating a treatment plan for myself with essential oils and Chinese medicine and EFT and using a different. I was very inspired by Kim Anami. She's a really famous sex therapist out there. She does vaginal weightlifting. It was fascinating, and she brought up the concept of using the yoni egg to kind of leach out emotions from your vagina. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And so I started to do that, and it was very cathartic because it was kind of like really like digging out emotions that were really in there. Because women, when we experience trauma, we store it, especially in the vagina and the uterus, kind of gets stored there. And so I was kind of experimenting with that, and then experimenting with breast massage, because we have a lot of meridians there, and it's also a very sexual maneuver, and it's a way for you to be in control of your what's happening to you in a sexual manner, but also in a very therapeutic manner. Because people who are experiencing sexual trauma, they cannot stand someone approaching them in a sexual manner. But if you give them the power to experience sexuality and sex on their own with them, they can rediscover what is pleasure, what makes them feel good, and makes them feel safe. And it kind of snowballs from there. So I was kind of like blotching here and there, and like tugging different lines and trying different things. And I'm like, oh, I have a method here. And so I started to be a little bit more concrete, a little bit more consistent with what was happening. And I noticed that certain essential oils were very good when it came to sexual trauma, emotional, physical, emotional, and spiritual, etc. And so I kind of used that, and I kind of took a few of my friends who were guinea pigs for me, and I was kind of adapting it to them. So really what I am today is completely by accident, and thanks to my ex.
Unfortunately, that's kind of how it works with a lot of traumas. We don't even know that we've had an experience, especially when it happens young.
No, and especially a lot of women, they kind of they normalize their trauma. So to them, it is normal to feel this way. To them, there's nothing wrong. They don't understand where, if they have trauma, they wouldn't understand where it came from, because they probably are victims of the gaslighting. Gaslighting is very uh, normal, and it occurs a lot when it comes to victims. People tell them, oh, you're just imagining things, or you're just making things up, or it's no big deal, oh, I didn't say that, or I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you feel that way is such a slap in the face, especially to a survivor, because it's like,
Mhm.
oh, it's a you problem. Oh, it's all in your head. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I have nothing to be sorry for. It's all you. And that was my ex, and he's the reason I'm here today. He was a narcissist, and I was in his clutches for over 10 years, and he was very gaslighting. He was manipulative. And ironically, he asked me to marry him, and I said no.
Well, let's just take a moment and applaud you for saying no, because I know a lot of women who are in those types of relationships, and it's a cycle that is so hard to break.
No, but he asked me to marry him after we hadn't seen each other in 10 years.
Okay.
I know. And he had me on a leash for over 15 years. I was like almost addicted to him. And it was like I tried to move on with other relationships, but it's like his narcissism was pulling me back. It's like I'm the only one who will ever be able to love you. I'm the only one who understands you. And the more you kind of are living in that, the more it's a traumatizing experience, because a lot of women don't understand that living with the words of a narcissist is trauma. And I was
Whew.
lucky. I was lucky. I was not SA'd, I was not, nothing physical ever happened to me, and it was purely emotional and mental. But I can only imagine what it would be like for women who have had physical um, interactions, because that would be a whole other level of trying to deny what happened to them, denial, blocking that memory or moving on. And that would incur a lot of physical manifestations on top of the emotional, but especially the physical, because your body is acting on a subconscious level to protect you from any further attacks. So of course you're gonna run into vaginal infections, recurrent vaginal infections, atrophy, where your vagina kind of constricts and closes up for you cannot have penetration, dryness, irritation, open wounds down there and everything. And women don't realize that most of those symptoms that kind of appear out of nowhere are a sign of trauma.
I feel like outside of our holistic community, right? People don't realize that their body is speaking to them I was working with a client the other day, and she's had recurring ear infections for over 40 years. And she could pinpoint when they started. And it was with her verbally abusive first
She didn't
husband.
she didn't want to hear something. It's her
Her
body saying she didn't want to hear something.
Exactly. And
Yes.
I was like, let's thank that part of your body for doing such a great job. Like, it was literally protecting you from hearing those words, right?
Exactly. As
Ah,
much as much as these symptoms can be horrible and painful and
absolutely.
completely draining, it is your body protecting you in the only way it knows how to.
Hmm. Absolutely. Amazing. You're doing amazing work. I mean, I've not been a fly on the wall in a session, but I just know you're doing amazing things. So this is exciting.
Thank you.
All right. So who is it that inspires you? Like, I mean, you told us your story, how you got here, but who is inspiring you to continue moving forward, continuing on this process?
My mother. It's very cliche, it's very simple, but my mother is a doctor in quantum healing therapy. She's an aromatherapist. She has worked with a Shaolin master. She works in energetics. And I see her every day work with her clients, and I see the wonderful transformations she has with them, how they thank her, how they follow her for years and years, and how they will do almost anything for her. And I'm like, I hope I have that kind of devotion one day. I hope I can have that kind of impact on someone's life one day, you know? And she is very humble. She does not, I don't think she understands the huge impact she has on this world, how important she is. But she is a monolith. She is a huge pillar. And if she wasn't here, if she wasn't doing what she did every day, I would not even try to continue what I was doing because I wouldn't see the point.
So how is it that you work with your clients?
Like this is right now, I'm just debuting, I'm just starting out. I was writing my book. My book is kind of like the little leeway into my coaching. But usually what I would expect is to see them once a week for an hour, for them to really run down what they did, what I expect them to do for the week, and we kind of identify what kind of trauma they have, where it comes from, what their physical symptoms are, what their emotional symptoms are, and the best course of action using the different holistic tools I have, especially aromatherapy, is the main component in all of this, and how aromatherapy kind of can complement the other tools that I want them to use. So if a woman, because I only work with women,
Mhm.
especially, so I try to not make them feel shy about using sex toys, for example. And sex toys are not just for sex; they're tools, and everything that I give them to use are tools. So I try to associate different essential oil blends that kind of are specifically made for them and their needs. So maybe I'll tell them, okay, for this week I want you to do X amount of vaginal suppositories for this. I want you to use this rub for your chest for this amount of time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it kind of adapts week by week. I kind of adapt the whole thing,
Mhm.
and it kind of crescendos. And it's really a very organic process. I just see what they need, how much they need it of, and how to adapt, and what they're comfortable with, and how it's really an exchange of energy most of the
Mhm.
time. But it's a full support. I'm always there for them, and I don't have any cookie cutters at all. Everything that I give them is completely made for them. Also, pure knowledge. They have to be educated. They have to have the knowledge. It's very good for me to tell them what to do, but they have to understand why they have to do it. Because
Mhm.
my job is not for them to be dependent on me. I want them to be independent at the end of the coaching. I want them to be able to be completely independent, sovereign, and to be in full control of their intimate health and their sexuality, to have all the tools that they need to know how to adapt their mixes, how to change their ratios, etc. And if they have any questions, they can always reach back to me. That's the most important thing, because I know that essential oil safety is very crucial. It's very important to have, because you just can't mix different oils together and hope for the best. You can't do that.
Mhm.
And one thing that really annoyed me that I saw was a trend on TikTok or whatever, is women heard that rosemary oil was good for hair growth. So they were just dousing raw rosemary on their scalp. And I'm like,
Mhm.
ah, And this is why aromatherapy has a bad rep sometimes for being quote unquote dangerous, because people don't know how to use them safely, appropriately. So that's why I always tell my clients or anybody on my Instagram and whatever, I give you like these oils and how I use them for safety reasons, but do not attempt to change what I'm saying or adapt it to what you think it should be good for you, because you're not a professional, you're not certified. Ask someone who is certified beforehand.
Yeah.
Like misinformation is very, very big, especially in holistics and aromatherapy, which is why it's so important, especially in coaching, to educate, educate, and then you help. It's
Right.
always it's that's why I'm at some point I'm in the process of creating an online course for women's intimate health, is to really explain to them anatomy, physiology, and kind of guiding them, kind of what I would do in coaching, but more standard and cookie cutter. So kind of
Right.
giving them like proper instructions, kind of more general, to certain things, not adapted to them specifically, but kind of a diluted version of coaching in a more feasible, understandable way where they can take notes and where they can go back if they want to, etc. And it's a group coaching as well. So it's
Right.
less personal, but it's more attainable if they wish that.
Right. And then if they want to do more, then they can work with you one-on-one.
Exactly.
Very cool. So I found aromatherapists to be some of the most interesting people. And I'm telling you, you're already extremely interesting just with what you're doing. But what else do you enjoy? What other hobbies or passions do you have?
Oh, I love to travel. Traveling is expensive. It's an expensive hobby, but I feel most at home and most happy when I'm in an airport,
Hmm.
especially in international terminals. I love it so much.
If you could go back to any of the places that you've already visited, which one would it be?
I loved Greece.
Mm.
I was in Athens and I love mythology and archaeology and history. I was with my mother. She could not care less about that, does not care. But she was happy to be with me as I was freaking out. We were in the Agora. I'm like, Ma, do you realize where we are? It's like, it's a pile of stone. I'm like, do you know? Like,
Yeah.
I'm someone who will have like an itinerary written out, where to go, where to eat. She does not care, does not care. No, my mother and we're very similar, but very much opposites in many
Mhm.
ways.
That's
But
funny.
but I love to read. Like I'm reading a lot of actually, like I've been really into fantasy recently because I just have the need to escape.
Mm.
So for me, my escapism is to read fantasy, and it's been great. It's just that you travel to faraway lands where there are dragons and whatever, and you're like, this is great. This is
So
so
it's
great.
it's travel,
Yeah,
but through a book.
exactly. And it's like if I can't travel physically, I'll travel mentally. And I love museums. I love art museums. I could spend hours in art museums, bore the pants of whoever is with me. I swear to God.
So what are you working on right now that's got you really excited?
I'm finishing up my book.
Mm.
It's almost finished. It's right there, and I'm gonna put it out there, promote it as much as I can. It's really hard to promote on Instagram and Facebook for me because of what I do. And I was actually I was blocked by Instagram to promote anymore on their platform because I tried to promote a post about sexual healing. They did not like that, and they have blocked me perpetually from boosting anything or promoting anything on Instagram. So I'm like, oh, thank you, Instagram. Thank you for that.
Wow.
I know. It's just Meta is very picky
Yeah.
about people in my industry because of what we talk about, even though it's probably very safe and we're professionals and everything, but they are very trigger sensitive.
So how has plant medicine affected you personally, beyond what you're doing now? Like how has it really affected you in your life?
I want to say it's given me a better awareness of what the body can do, of healing, of the mental, the psyche, the psychological, and everything. It's kind of given me an idea of what the body is capable of doing, what it needs in its simplest form to heal, to improve, and so on. And I think people are very quick to complicate the capacities of the body and so on, and what it needs and what it doesn't need, when in actuality it's such a huge powerhouse that we don't understand fully at this point. And plant medicine and aromatherapy are just one of those things that kind of puts two and two together, because when you think aromatherapy, in my case I think Chinese medicine, because Chinese medicine and aromatherapy go so well together to explain how meridians work, and how which essential oil associated with each meridian, how that explains the properties of the essential oil, and how that relates back to the body, the meridians, etc. It's like a big circle. In my head, it makes sense. In my head, it's like a big circle of how everything is interconnected. And to me, it's given me a stronger sense of power, like an inner power of knowing. It's like, I know this, I feel secure, I feel more in control, and I know that I'm capable of this or this or this. My mother, she made me get my Reiki degree and everything. She made me like have all these tools so that I'm more independent, more in control, and more aware of what my body needs, what it's capable of. It's all about awareness and education. She doesn't want me to be dependent on any medical system for X, Y, and Z, when it's not necessary.
Yeah. And it really is all about awareness and communication, right? Communication, mind, body, spirit, communication, and getting that connection, that communication, mind, body, spirit communication is just critical for our health and well-being.
And what's rewarding, I think, is seeing someone in a very toxic mentality, toxic state, kind of doing a 180 at some point.
Excellent. So the mission of the podcast is to connect you with people, the people who need you, the people who want to get to know you, the people who want to work with you. So how can people find you and what you're doing?
People can find me on my Instagram handle very easily. I'm the most there. They can message me there. They can email me. I have that on my website somewhere if they want to look that up. But mostly if they want to reach me through Instagram, and they can DM me or whatever, and I will reply to them. Make sure that they're very precise as to why they're reaching out, because I get a lot of creeps on Instagram who keep reaching out to me, and you'd be surprised about the level of oh my god. But if they're very concise and they're specific, then I won't think that there's something else, but usually Instagram is the best way to reach me.
Okay. As we come to the close of our time together, I always just like to hand the floor over to my guest. If you feel like maybe I missed something, or there's something you want people to know, or any inspiring words, this time is yours.
People are very quick to assume that their trauma is the end of the world, that they will never be the same. And it's true. They will never be the same. And they're not expected to. And they think that since they will never be the same, that they are unworthy, that they are broken, that they are not worth anything. But I want them to understand. I want anybody to understand who has endured trauma, who is broken, who feels broken, is that, I don't know if you know this Japanese term called kintsugi. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. It's the art of taking broken pottery and lining the cracks with gold. And it actually increases the value of the object even more than what it was before. So your trauma and you healing that trauma is you lining those cracks with gold. And the sooner you realize that you have power, and that you have that your worth increases, and that your resilience is there, and that your power is there, the better you can harness that, and the better you can move on and heal and grow and layer that on. Because in a way, trauma happened to you and it's horrible, but thank God it happened to you, because then you can really become someone truly powerful and incredible.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, Chloe, this has been so great. I've had so much fun chatting with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And if people are, I'm just coming out with my book. If they're curious about that, there's the link that they're going to provide for them, where they can click on that. It's the first 3 chapters for them if they're curious about that. And it's coming out pretty soon, so hopefully they'll be curious about that.
Do you have a title for the book? Because I know sometimes that's like the last thing you come up with.
It is called Unbroken.
Unbroken. Beautiful. Oh, Chloe, thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
Absolutely. Wow. Chloe is doing amazing work. I think it is absolutely incredible that she has taken up the banner of this much needed work and that she comes from a place of personal experience. I think there are women who experienced sexual trauma who don't even know it. I think that every one of us on the planet knows someone who has experienced it or even experienced it yourself. Suppressing the feminine has been a theme throughout all of history, and that theme continues even now. The fact that Chloe has chosen this to be her field of expertise, her niche, speaks to this. I encourage you to take a look at what your body may be trying to tell you. When you experience pain or chronic issues, your body is communicating with you. Sometimes you need someone to help you learn to listen, and that's why people like Chloe, myself, and other holistic practitioners exist. You do not need to suffer through whatever it is that you're going through alone. Reach out, connect, begin the healing process, even if you don't know what caused the problem to begin with. Your subconscious mind catalogs every single experience of your life, and many times it is just waiting for you to be ready so that you can begin healing. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Chloe Ellert. Isn't she amazing? I loved hearing about all she's doing with aromatherapy and sexual trauma. I encourage you to share this episode on your social channels or with someone you know who is ready to heal. Be sure to download her free gift, and I will include all of the links mentioned in today's show notes. Aromatic Chat is produced by Lemon Balm Coaching. I'm your host, Melissa, Master Transformational Coach, Registered Aromatherapist, and Certified Emotion Code Practitioner. I invite you to connect with me on the web at lemonbalmcoaching.com and Instagram at lemonbalmcoaching. I will see you next time with our next episode. Until then, peace, love, and aromatics.